Make a move and the bunny gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
All right. Is that better? All right. Let me check, make sure. Um, audio. Testing. Yeah, we got audio. All right. Thanks for letting me know, Dave. I was talking to myself, evidently. Yes, we hear you now. Haha. All right. Good. Okay. So, what I was saying is that I was on 10 minutes late. Is Craig had a setback today, so I was with him, and then 15 minutes till he's like, "I'm good now. Go do your show." And so I drove all the way home. Figured out I didn't have an opening crawl. Spent time making the opening crawl. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about ensembles. Okay, now ensembles, if you do them right, is the best kind of comics to me. I love ensemble comics. I love the variety. I love the stories you can tell. I love the interactions. I love the excitement. And if you do an ensemble comic right, it's very accessible because everybody can find somebody that they identify with. Everybody can find somebody that can glom onto and kind of like that appeals to them. And you can have a wide variety of stories you can tell. Everything from kind of romantic angles to family drama. Like Fantastic Four has. Maybe not the movie, but the comic had. But if you do ensembles right, the world's your oyster. One example, I was saying that a lot of people kind of like try to have like single character comics because the ensemble is a lot harder to land. It's a lot harder. You're juggling more balls. Okay. A single character comic is kind of like basketball. Ball's in your hand. You shoot, you retrieve the ball. You can play by yourself, not with yourself, by yourself. You can play with yourself too, but that's something entirely different. That takes two balls. But anyway, forget I said that. All right, so all right, the single character comics is kind of like basketball, but ensemble comics, ensemble anything is like juggling. Got way more balls in the air. Way more things that you are trying to keep up in the air and to keep floating. It takes a rhythm. It takes it takes planning, a lot of planning. Usually, instead of just one biography, you'll have 13 different biographies or more, and I think you caught that, right, Dave? Yeah, you caught that. Anyway, but okay. So now, one approach was this book here. Does it look familiar? Anybody? But anyway, so this guy here, yeah, needs a good balance. Right. Yeah, I'm giving all characters attention, makes them all interesting. Right. But so the guy in my chat, Dave, he did this comic here. It's called Perfect 10. Okay. Now, this young lady, it started out kind of as a single character comic, but it had an ensemble in it. Had a lot of characters. What's up, Wrangler? Good to see you, dude. Yeah. But he later on he kind of like brought in all these other characters, all these other teams and stuff like that. And the good example, Battle Brick Road, based on the Frank L. Baum characters. That's one of the most legendary ensembles. Dorothy, you got Tin Man, you got Cowardly Lion, you got the Scarecrow. So this is a reinterpretation of that. Did a real good job on it. But that's a tip. That's an ensemble that from the history. this is a real good one, Hybrids by Luke Stone. Hopefully he'll get back to this one these days, but he's running FMC and a ministry right now. But this one right here had a great ensemble. Okay. All right. That's all I got handy right here. Now, in my my thumbnail, I had Mythicals. Now, Mythicals is a very good ensemble piece by my friend Hojo. I will say no more because I get in trouble when I say very much more. Anyway, great book. No spoilers. Great book. Anyway, so now, if you want to look at movie wise, like the Avengers was a incredible ensemble movie. And everybody's been trying to recreate that movie ever since. They tried with the Justice League, and didn't do too well with that. But ensemble anything, it takes a deft touch. And like I said, it's more juggling than basketball. And it basically takes it takes focus and it takes planning. Okay, now, are there some things that you can have, that you can put in your work that make it more likely for your ensemble to succeed? That's yes, that's an affirmative. Okay. Now think of all the ensembles that you've enjoyed over the years. Now, what did they have in common? I'm dealing with two ensembles right now. Yeah, there you go. There you go. It's a challenge, man. But here are some tricks. Okay. Now this is from my reading experience with being a long-term fiction and comic reader. This also I had I do a lot of writing, and so I also do editing and some script editing, things like that. And so I do know of what I speak. But when it comes to ensembles, the key word is balance. Balance is the most important thing that you can have with an ensemble. Now, what are you balancing? Okay. Just like keeping those balls in the air. If you get off tempo, if you hold on to one ball too long, or if you throw one ball too far, you lose your juggle. You lose the juggle. Okay. Now, what different kinds of balances that you need? Okay. You need, now this is a dirty word. Our current let's say, how many characters count as an ensemble? I think it starts from 3. I think 3, you can call 3 an ensemble. Anything beyond a single or a duo would be, I'd consider an ensemble. But one of the things that, modern society has kind of gotten obsessed with this. And so it's kind of become a dirty word. All right. But you need a gender balance. Now, what I mean by that is not the buzzwords, not the booing and hissing. I know there's booing and hissing going on right now. But what I mean is not the buzzwords. I don't mean it in the way they do. Okay. I mean it in traditional male-female roles. You need that feminine energy and you need the male energy. Okay. Now, you can have more men than women, but if you have more women than men, then they start, gender balance and diversity. Right. But if you have, now I've noticed this, but if you have more women than men in a group, then what happens is their personal arcs start falling. They start like interfering with one another, and and it just has to do with the fact that women tend to not do well in groups naturally. Okay, now usually women keep a very tight circle, and it's the same way with fiction. If you're writing women, most of the time, one or two, three's kind of pushing it, but one or two in your ensemble usually works better than in having more males than females, because that's just the way it works. Now, I can get into the dynamics of it or whatever, but most of the time, like, think about all the ensembles that you've enjoyed. They always had more men than women. And it just has to do is if you're writing women the right way, then you kind of only, quality is better than quantity when it comes to that. Because women are definitely need more room to be expressed. They need more room to kind of like it just works out that way. Okay, so but you do need some women and in your ensemble, and you need a lot of men in your ensemble, and trust me, it just always works out that way. And I mean, think X-Men, how many women to men ratio? Fantastic Four, 3-1, right? It's like, I think Marvel had a 25% female ratio rule at one point. They clearly moved away from that. Yeah, they did. They did. And the problem we got now is the fact that they've focused so much on the females that they've everything they've got is unbalanced now. Everything's unbalanced, and so basically they basically masculinize one of the females instead of bringing in a man, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It doesn't have the same bounce. It doesn't have the same energy. I mean, think about all your favorite groups that you've looked at over the years. Most of them had a lower female to male ratio, if not all of them. Now, groups that have all males, they tend to they can sell. I mean, you can sell that like a Midnight Suns or something like that. But if you have all female group, they don't succeed as well. Like A-Force as an example of that. And you got Sailor Moon and things like that. It seems to work in manga more than it works in Western comics, but I'm not sure why that is. But anyway, but you do need a gender balance. You need a good gender balance. Okay. Now you need an age balance. Now in the past, there has been comics that have succeeded with mostly young people in it, like Teen Titans, The Runaways is a good example of that. Power Pack, I love Power Pack. But you always have a mentor character. You always have people around that are older, that are training or that are teaching or that are overseeing. And because, even with the younger group, there's always needs to be an older energy somewhere. And but most of the time, the best ensembles, you'll have the maturity and you have the precociousness of youth. Now, it just works out best that way. Now, if you have a bunch of old grizzled people in the same group, that can work. If you got people that know each other very well, and they kind of like, know where everybody's weakness is. That can work. But most of the time, you need some youth somewhere to set it off. Hold on a second. Men have a tendency towards working together on a project. Women dominate it when it comes to social scenarios. Women aren't very good at working together. They just aren't. They just aren't. It's just not naturally do not work well together. I mean, look, there's been attempts made for women who basically kick all the males out and made like female startups, and they have never succeeded. They have never succeeded. If you have a women for an ensemble, it require more focus on interpersonal drama than the battle. You need more eating scenes where they're sitting around talking about their feelings. I mean, think about modern comics. What's happening there? Yeah, that's the reason why. But you do need older and younger. Okay. Now, another kind of diversity is you need the hyper physical, the aggression, the physicality, but you also need to balance that with somebody who's very cerebral, somebody who's very intelligent, somebody who's more of a planner. You need that kind of balance where you got somebody that's more careful than brute force. You see this in Fantastic Four. I mean, Fantastic Four is a good example of everything I'm saying here. When it works right, it works very well. But you have like the thing busting through walls, and you got Reed Richards in his lab somewhere, thinking up the solutions. Didn't miss anything, Wookie. I got here late, and then I promptly froze up and had to reboot. So anyway, so to review, okay, you need a gender balance, and it needs to work. It needs more male than female. I'm not saying a 2-to-1 ratio, maybe even smaller than a 2-to-1 ratio, maybe more like 3-to-1 ratio. Like you said, Marvel used to have a rule of 25% female, and it just works. It just works better that way because women don't work as well together. They just don't. You need a age variety. You need older and younger working together. And then you need the physical, and you need the mental balance. Okay. All right. Anyway, try that with dudes who just want land. Keep them for adventure stories. Usually one chicken, 5-man band seems to work best. Yeah. It just does. Oh boy, gotta love technology. Right. So anyway, make sure that's still plugged in. All right. So you need that the mental and the physical. Okay. Now you need temperament balance. Now a lot of people miss this, but you need a temperament balance. You need people that are like hot-headed, maybe rushing where fools fear to tread. Then you might have people that are overcautious. Or you might have people that are more cerebral, more planners, and you might have people who are manipulative. But if you get all that in one group, you have to basically that variety. If you catch your rhythm and you do it right, having that variety of temperaments works out very well. Most of the time, you have these strange bedfellows that kind of find each other. You know, like Scott from Cyclops from X-Men was a Boy Scout. He was a planner. He didn't tie his shoes unless he had a plan. And then he always wound up seemingly with Wolverine, who was complete id. You know, if it came into his head, he did it. He didn't give a crap. He was laid back but intense at the same time. You know, he was just basically did not plan. He just what was his favorite move? The fastball special. You know, Cyclops throwing him into the battle. You know, I mean that was pretty much his move. You know, Cyclops. You know, he was thinking, okay, I need to bounce it off of here, bounce it off of here, and bounce it off of here. he's thinking geometric shapes, and Wolverine's thinking slash, slash, slash. Kill everything, go home, drink a beer. Smoke a cigar. Anyway, Wrangle, I'm just melting away here, Southwest Desert. Oh, please. I'm glad to play it, aren't I? I'm glad to play it. All right. Where we at? Yeah, okay. Well, the reason why you're hot is... All right. That never gets old. He lives in Arizona. Anyway, I had to play that. All right, so yeah, you need temperament balance, okay? If ensembles have these rules that make them work, how do you prevent that every ensemble is essentially the same? Well, no, right. Wolverine has that run and gun attitude, but when he does plan, dang, he can be even scarier. Admittedly, not as fun. Yeah, right. Well, I mean, think of Avengers, okay? You got Captain America, who is a soldier, okay? He's planning, he's strategic, right? You got Scarlet Widow, who's manipulative, an infiltrator, somebody who's sneaking in and sneaking out, and you got the Hulk, who's basically Hulk smash, it's not very subtle there. But then you got people like Hawkeye. Hawkeye is laid back. He sets back. He looks at the angles. He he makes sure his aim is true. But he does look a little bit like he does have a little bit of gambler in him. But you got that, and then you got Iron Man, and Iron Man is a total tech nerd. He's also a little bit of a playboy, but Iron Man is always thinking like, well, I can make a gadget to fix everything, and that comes into conflict, right? But why does it work? Then you got the Thor, God of Thunder, this guy who's like been there, done everything, and it's just pretty much a immortal dude bro. And so, yeah, you got that guy who can like take a punch from Hulk, and but at the same time, he's just basically a berserker in battle, But so you gotta arrange all of these things to work, and so basically, getting the temperaments right. It takes a lot of trial and error. But once you get it right, then the thing starts really singing. It starts moving, it starts grooving, you get some real fun stories out of it, even Power Pack, one of my favorite groups. You had the oldest son who kind of like was a little arrogant, basically, he's like, okay, I know everything. You don't know anything. I'm the oldest. Then you got the middle brother, who was kind of like just didn't know how good he was, But he's like resenting his older brother, but he's a good soldier. Then you got the youngest girl, who's a little bit of flighty, a little bit scared of everything. And then you got the older sister, who's a cerebral nerd. And more of a tech genius. And that was the Power Pack. And even though they were all kids, they had a real good balance to them because, at the end of the day, their parents told them the parents were like the ones that they deferred to, or any older superhero that came around, they would defer to that superhero. Wolverine, and we're brawling here in New England. Humidity stick area you can wear. Come on, guys. Focus. Anyway, golly, everybody talking about weather. I'm not going to talk about the weather, all right? I live in Webster, North Carolina. I'm a little sick of weather, okay? Anyway, Now what makes it all work is this hidden attribute that I've kind of come up with, and it's the pulp versus noir. Okay. Now, what I mean by pulp is true blue, dyed-in-the-wool characters got a little bit of something supernatural about them, but they have a code of ethics that they follow. They have a strict code of ethics that they follow. They're always going to follow it, and there's something that they don't differentiate. I mean, they don't move away from this path. And then you got the noir characters who don't have that. They basically go with the flow. They're more situational ethics, and that those people will always defer to the one with the stronger ethos. They'll always defer to somebody that actually has a code of ethics. And so if you get a group where you have noir kind of characters, and then you got like one or two characters that have like the definitive like their pulp, they have that definitive personal code, then you can kind of everybody kind of falls in place once you have that established. And that is the key. Okay. So example, Fantastic Four, about to get that movie coming out later this week. But Reed Richards had a definitive moral code. Okay. And Sue kind of deferred to him. And being Grimm was more morally flexible, but he deferred to Reed Richards' moral code. And then you had Johnny Storm, who's basically pure noir character, always out for a good time, a little bit of a hothead, and a little on the nose with that. But he always would defer to Reed's. I mean, he would disagree with Reed, but he would eventually defer to Reed's leadership. Now, how that's going to work with Sue Storm being the leader, which is what they're going to do, this Fantastic Four movie, it's going to be a disaster. It just is. They're messing with the energy. They're messing with the formula. You can't do that. But anyway, but they will always defer. The more noir characters would defer to the one pulp character. And the supernatural thing about Reed was his intelligence. Okay, he's like one of the most intelligent people in all of Marvel comics. But you see that happen like in Avengers. You got characters like Hawkeye, Scarlet Widow, a Hulk, people like that who are more noir, more morally flexible. And then you got the Captain America and the Iron Man or somebody like that. Sometimes it was Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp, but the person that had the leadership, had the definitive moral code that, inspired other people to follow them, because they're like, in all situations, I believe that they're going to do the right thing. And so even if I don't know the right thing, I'm going to defer to them because I believe that they'll figure it out. And so you need that for the X-Men, back at the mansion with Cerebro helmet on, you had Professor X. And everybody deferred to Professor X, but in the field, they deferred to Cyclops because Cyclops was kind of like Professor X's surrogate in the field. And so they would defer to Cyclops. And because he had a moral code, he was that pulp character. Later on they screwed with that. And, they kind of like really screwed with that. But they kept him as a morally... They kept that person with a definitive moral code, but they kind of skewed his code a little bit in the X-Force comics when he started basically creating a kill squad, But always, Wolverine would defer to Scott's leadership. Him or Jean Grey. A lot of people kind of like defer to her leadership too. But but what basically he's the pulp character. He's the pulp character, the one that everybody kind of like in the heat of battle, they're going to say, okay, I'm going to defer to that person. What that person tells me to do, I'm going to do. Basically because they have that moral code, and I'm going to trust them to do the right thing. So when you build an ensemble, you have to, you have to have that. You have to have that definitive moral code, that person that everybody follows. That's one of the reasons why Watchmen was so screwed up. Because in the Watchmen, everybody deferred to the noir characters and ignored the one pulp character, which was Rorschach. Because everybody else was deferring to the morally, situational ethic guy. And everybody wound up following him instead of the guy who had a definitive moral code. And then everybody saw that, and they're like, oh, I want some of that. And so everybody started making books with where the morally indeterminate were the lead characters, or the ones that everybody deferred to. And we've never been the same. We've never been the same since. Because that's deconstruction. And deconstruction, you basically get left with a bunch of parts and nothing built. And you got to build it back. And they never have. So, in review, if you want to build a good ensemble, pay attention to your gender dynamics. Men have more men than women. Almost a 3-to-1 ratio. Marvel basically said 4-to-1. But I think 3-to-1 is probably a good ratio. But, also have older to younger. You need that older to younger energy. So make sure that you have older, more established, more experienced characters mixed in with your young whippersnapper, new to the world characters. Okay. Then thirdly, make sure that you have the physical characters and the mental characters. Make sure you don't have all physical or all mental, because if you get that balance wrong, then you have a boring team. You have a team that doesn't have any kind of variety, a team that doesn't have any flexibility. So now the fourth step is make sure that you have a temperament balance. Make sure you have different personalities. Make sure you have people who have different impulse controls. People with different, maybe even levels of shame. Have somebody that, is a flower child that doesn't care if they have a stitch of clothes on. Most of the time it's going to be a female, but anyway. And then the last step, the fifth step would be make sure you know who your pulp characters are, and make sure your noir characters defer to that pulp character. And don't mess with that. Don't mess with that. Anyway, I don't know if we can really say Watchmen got it wrong due to it being nihilistic side. It wasn't meant to be a good ending. Follow the less moral guys. What led to it? Yeah, I'll agree to that. Variety in abilities is also important. Yeah, definitely a variety in abilities. That kind of goes back to the physical and the mental, right? But you have your brute strength. You have your brute strength physical. Then you have your like martial art physical. Then you have like mental, like pure mental, like telepathy, things like that. Then you have your like planners or whatever. You always have a blaster or two. Somebody can blast from long distances to go along with your up close and personal guy. The physical. And Maybe even have a different speeds. Have like a speedster. Speedsters, they come with their own challenges, though. If you have a speedster, then you definitely have to pay attention to where they are at all times. You know, because speedsters cause plot holes. So make sure you establish how fast they are at the beginning, and don't go any faster than that, because speedsters cause plot. They just do. They cause plot holes. And it just, you have that built-in Deus Machina where oh, they're so fast that they just fixed everything. Well, why didn't they do that to start with? You know, I mean, that's the whole thing. You know, if he's that fast, then why didn't he just fix the problem before it ever happened? You know, why didn't he just run on ahead? And, you know, he's so fast and everybody else is so slow. Why didn't he do that? So speedsters do cause their own problems. They do have their own problems. So if you're going to do a speedster, I recommend you nerf them. Don't make them too fast, or otherwise you lose a lot of your, you know, you lose a lot of believability. You lose a lot of verisimilitude. You know, my friend Kimosabi from Company Men, his speedster ramjet was perfect. That's the most perfect speedster that I've ever seen written. I mean, he was just perfect. Telekinetic is the brick of the group. I made him overpowered just so I can make it around like Looney Tunes characters and not kill him. Okay. All right. I get it. Speedsters are extremely difficult to write. Yes, they are. They really, really are. That's why I don't recommend you do speedsters unless you establish their powers and do not differentiate. And make sure, I mean, if they start moving forwards and backwards in time or being so fast that they can, you know, I mean, dodging bullets is fast enough, I think. You start going any more than that, like vibrating through walls and stuff like that, you really start getting into difficulties there, because everything in the plot can be solved if you got a speedster that's that fast. It kind of ruins the rest of it. It just does, because everybody's always going to have that thought in the back of their head. Well, why didn't the speedster just go ahead and do it? Why didn't the speedster knock that guy out? Why didn't the speedster, you know, solve this problem? Why is anybody even moving, right? And so speedsters are definitely a challenge. I highly recommend that if you use a speedster, nerf them. Okay? Don't let them get too powerful, or is way too problematic. All right, I had to think long and hard on my speedster. I gave it very clear limits. I had to research physics for it. It knows you can't phase or use it to time travel. There you go. Please, everyone, like and subscribe and share. I appreciate it. Yep, please do that. Evidently, the algorithm only goes on engagement now. So if you could do that, I appreciate it. Now, my speedster, Speed Zone, you know, he's very fast, but because of his speed, it makes him age twice as fast. And so this dude is like in his 20s, and he looks like he's in his 40s. And so that's kind of my dude. He's immature like a 20-something, but he looks like a 40-something, you know. But that's because the speed's causing him to age too fast, or age like twice as fast. But that's my guy. But anyway, so if you basically if you follow those steps, it will help you to create a great ensemble. And the challenges of ensembles are a lot. There's a lot of challenges. But if you get it right, there is nothing like it. If you get the balance right, if you get the characters right, if you get the the interactions right, there is nothing like an ensemble. There's absolutely nothing like it. And so I will say this: if you are just starting out, or if your writing skill is kind of rudimentary, I wouldn't try it. Writing an ensemble is kind of like black belt. Writing a single character comic is more like a yellow belt. You know, it's more like a sparring with somebody. Writing an ensemble is an advanced skill. It really is. And not everybody can pull it off. So know your limitations. But if you have the ability to write an ensemble, get those balances right. Because balance is the key. Getting their balances right is the key. You know, figure out who that pulp character is and let everybody else defer to that character in the heat of the battle. And make sure, once again, the proper ratio is going to be less females than males. It sounds sexist, but trust me, you know, if you're going to write a female properly, like a woman, write a female like a female, then you can't have that many women in your ensemble. You just can't. Love him or hate him, Josh Whedon is excellent at it. Yeah, Josh Whedon is very excellent at it. Avengers. That is about the perfect ensemble movie right there. It's just about a perfect ensemble with one woman main character, you know, Black Widow. So there you go. If you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he usually had about a 50-50 ratio in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But then if you watch Angel had a 4-to-1 female ratio. So is James Gunn. James Gunn is good at it. Yes, he is. When he doesn't get too cute. But see the first Guardians of the Galaxy. Remember, Guardians of the Galaxy, one female in the group was one female. I guess you can count Nebula, but she wasn't really part of the group. But anyway, but I mean, break it down. Guardians of the Galaxy, what'd you have? You had the age and the youth, right? Because Star-Lord acted like a kid, and then you had Groot, who acted like an older guy. Then you had temperament. You had temperament variety. You know, you had Rocket the Raccoon, who was the hothead. Okay, you had Groot, who was like, you know, cool and kind of laid back. Then you had like a Star-Lord who was arrogant and jumped in were too early, in over his head a lot. You know, you had that variety, but you also had that basically pulp character, because Star-Lord was a pulp character, and so when the heat was on, they deferred to Star-Lord, right? I mean, and they had a variety of that. You know, Nebula came in, Gamora went out. Yeah, I didn't see that last movie. I need to see that last movie, but Gamora was a good example. You know, she was the female, had a female energy, but she deferred to Star-Lord begrudgingly, but she did. But you know, what made that movie work was the fact that they found this familial aspect. You know, there were a bunch of people that couldn't get along with anybody else that found each other. And it kind of formed this group, and that when you go to write an ensemble, you can you can't do worse than Guardians of the Galaxy, or the Avengers, or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or Firefly. You talk about an ensemble. Firefly was an ensemble. I had about a 50-50 ratio male to female. So Josh makes it work. He's about the only one I've seen do it, but he makes it work. I guess you'd say they have Mantis, but she's more of a childlike character. That alters a bit, right? She doesn't really give off female energy, though. She doesn't really give off female energy. But anyway, so I mean, go back, watch my tips, and look at your favorite ensemble and see if I'm not right. It comes from experience. It comes from writing it. It comes from reading it. It comes from watching it, and it just comes from observation. But basically, if you hear nothing more from me than this, if you want your ensemble to work, basically find that pulp character and just make that your linchpin, make that your foundation. And when times are down or when things are rough, have that person step up, and you'll know who it is. If you write it correctly, you'll know who that pulp character is, that one that they all defer to. But anyway, so that's been good for Telepathic Bunny Comics. Sorry about the rough start, the late start. Actually, after I got off here, I'm headed back to the hospital. So it's been a week. It's just been a week. But thank you all for coming. Thank you, like and subscribe, like Wookie said. And I hope this helps you write. We need more ensembles. We need good ensemble work. And I hope this will encourage you to stick your toe in that water. Trust me, it's difficult, but if you pull it off, there's nothing like it. The stories become endless. The kinds of stories become endless. It's just amazing. Appreciate it, Dave. Thank you, man, for coming. You inspire me, man. You really do inspire me. I love Perfect 10. I love that, man. Appreciate it, dude. He needs it. Striving. Oh, okay. Wookie Fever streaming tomorrow night. Come one, come all. Vom one, come all. I think it means come one, come all. But I'm not gonna put words in his mouth. Anyway. All right. So I will talk to you guys later. Everybody, you have a very good weekend. And Cryptids and Conspiracy Saturday, we're going to talk about the Edmund Fitzgerald. Was it the crew's fault? So that's Saturday night, 7 o'clock. We will see you then, unless you watch Wookie's thing, which is tomorrow night. But we'll talk to you guys later. Follow the White Rabbit. Bye, everybody.